Gang, STAT1800A. Now, bear with me. This is going to be kind of hard to explain, but it's extremely important that you stick with me and do your best to follow me. All right. So let's say you have a friend who's also majoring in business at Shawnee State, and they took business stats, but they took STAT 1800. And here you are taking STAT 1800A. Now, what's the difference? Well, the difference is STAT 1800, the standalone course, is a 4-hour course. The STAT 1800A is a 5-hour course. The extra hour is spent in this class brushing up on material that we think is important for you to know to learn business statistics. Now, our research has shown at Shawnee, I do it, I know it well, that for students who have a 22 or higher in their ACT math score, we allow them to go directly into business stats, which again is the STAT 1800, because that's what the data shows us. They are likely to succeed. Now, there's all sorts of reasons people don't succeed, but just based on academic preparedness alone, the STAT 1800 of 22, the ACT math of 22 and higher, most students succeed in business statistics. Now, what happens when you're below 22? Well, we have found that for students who have an 18 to a 21 math ACT subscore, we have typically required them to take an extra class in math 0102, before taking business statistics. So what you would do there is you take a 3-hour course, math 0102, and then take the standalone 4-hour course, STAT 1800. Well, what STAT 1800A does is kind of mashes these two together and only charges you 1 extra credit hour. And instead of taking the content in a previous class, we teach it to you at the time you're going to use it. And we give it a big old fancy name called just-in-time remediation. All right. Now, what's that mean for you? What's the logistics of this going to look like? It didn't apply to lesson 1 because really what we did in lesson 1 was so straightforward in terms of learning categorical data and quantitative and doing means and medians and things like that. There really wasn't much, I would call it developmental content we needed to brush up on, but not so in lesson 2. Probability, the normal model, is very, very likely the most difficult lesson of the 7 in STAT 1800. So here's what's going to happen. Every lesson, if you go to lesson resources, you're going to see up here some video A. So it's going to be like video A1, video A2, video A3, however many videos that I need to get through to teach you the content that you would have learned in the 3-hour standalone course before. I'm going to teach it to you just as you need it. Now, here's the really cool stuff. The really cool stuff is I'm going to go through if you download this file right here, I'm going to go through all of these problems. These problems with numbers changed are the first 10 problems in the lesson in my stat lab. It's worth 50 points out of 150. It's 1/3 of your score in your My Stat Lab assignment, right? I'm going to work those problems for you and teach it along the way with just different numbers. So if you just do these, download this file, work along with me in these videos, use these as examples to work the first 10 problems in my stat lab, it's going to be an easy way to refresh and kind of relearn the content that you would have learned in that 1 semester long Math 0102. I hope that makes sense. Number 1, the advantages to it, you're only paying 1 additional credit hour of tuition, where the other way you would have paid 3. Another advantage is you get STAT 1800 behind you in 1 semester. The other way you would have had to take Math 0102 in 1 semester and STAT 1800 in another. And we have a potential to forget things, right? You may take Math 0102 a year ago, and by the time it comes to take STAT1800 and use that content, you may forget it, right? So that's what's going on. It's got a lot of advantages, and the studies on showing the effectiveness of this have been really overwhelming. Every single university in Ohio is implementing what we call co-requisite strategies, which is just a big old fancy name for what we're doing here. All right, so now we got that behind us. If you download this file, and again, by the time you see this, there's going to be video A1, video A2, however many it takes for me to, I want to keep the video somewhere around 10 minutes, so that's kind of what I'm seeking. All right, so let's do it. Let's get over to here. Let's get into here. And here is the file if you were to download. So something that we use a lot in probability is called a factorial. So a factorial is nothing more than, if we take n factorial, you probably should be able to see that, shouldn't you? It's just 1 times 2 times all the way up to n. It's just the product of the n numbers. So if we have 3 factorial, this is just 1 times 2 times 3, which we can easily see is 6. If we have 7 factorial, it's 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 times 6 times 7. I can't do that one in my head, but I can easily type it out. In my calculator. So it would be 5,040. Now, the really cool thing about this is there's a calculator key that does this for you. So if you have a TI-8384, you can just go to Math and go over to PRB, which is probability. And you'll come down to the 4th one, which is the factorial sign. All right, so what I need to do first of all is from the home screen, type in, I'll do the 3 factorial first. So type in 3, go to Math, go to Probability, go down to number 4, and I see that I get 6 just as I did before. All right, if we want to check 7, just go 7, go Math, go over to Probability, go down to number 4. So 7 factorial is going to be 5,040, just as we saw before. Next thing we get into is we get into what we call counting. And I think counting is really super cool because it gives you a lot of ways of determining the possible outcomes that we can get in a situation. Now, it's really cool too because it's really easy, right? Well, you don't know that yet, but I'm getting ready to teach it to you and show you how easy it is. So a restaurant offers 3 appetizers and 7 main course meals. And how many ways can a person order a 2-course meal? So they're defining a 2-course meal here as being an appetizer and a main course. So we have 2 ways of achieving. So we have to have a first course and a second course, don't we? There are 7 ways to get an appetizer. And there are 7, there are 3 choices for appetizer. There are 7 courses for the main course. The counting technique says if we multiply these together, we get the total number of ways a person can order a 2-course meal. Pretty cool, right? License plates in a particular state display 2 letters followed by 4 numbers. So we have 2 letters. Now I'm going to separate these just for a teaching, but you really wouldn't have to do that. Followed by 4 numbers. How many different license plates can be manufactured by this state? Well, we know there are 26 letters, so there could be 26 letters that go right there. There could be 26 letters that go right there. There are 10 numbers if we go 0 to 9. So there are 10 ways we could fill that, 10 ways we could fill that, 10 ways we could fill that, and 10 ways we could fill that. So we're going to have 26 squared times 10 to the 4th power, because again, the counting principle tells us that we can just multiply these. So 26 squared times 10 to the fourth, that is what we said, right? Yeah, don't want to have a bozo moment. So there would be, what, 7.76 million? Yeah, so there'd be 6.76 million potential license plates using this format. Now the next thing we get into what we call sample spaces, outcomes, and events. So a sample space is just the entire set of possibilities. An outcome are the set of outcomes in the sample space, and an event is something we define from a possibility of outcomes from a sample space. Sounds really complicated. Trust me, it's not. So a pair of fair six-sided die are rolled and the sum is recorded. What is the sample space? Well, we could look at the sample space by having this to be die 1 and die 2. So we have 6 possibilities for die 1 and 6 possibilities for die 2. Now what we're doing here, we are recording the sum. So if we roll a 1 here and a 1 here, we obviously get a 2, and a 3, and a 4, and a 5, and a 6, and a 7, and a 3, and a 4. This is going to drive me crazy, but I want to go ahead and do this because we're going to use it for you're probably like Dr. Darbro, I can count, got this. All right, so there's a sample space. There are 36 possibilities. So I would probably just let this be capital S, which stands for sample space, right? Now, part B, what is the number of possible outcomes for an event where we define the event as the sum is 10 or higher? Well, there's one of those. There's one. There's one. There's one. There's one. And there's one. So it looks like to me that the number of possible outcomes here is equal to 6. All right, so we have another page. I'm going to put that in the next video. It'll be called video A2, right? So I hope you're catching on to this. This is, again, cool stuff, just a way to help you review previously learned material and learn material that you're going to use in the regular STAT 1800 content. All right, take care.